gotta know what fine. I gotta, the words and phrases. I can't read a complete sentence right now unless it's actually written in print. Hi guys, this is Connie, and I was going to say, I've gotta know what happens next. So here's Connie reads Max the Mighty, Chapter 18. Keep us safe from you-know-who. That's what the skinny little dude calls himself, Hobo Joe. He's got long, scraggly hair and scruffy old clothes that are way too big for him. And when he smiles, his teeth are kind of crooked. Also, he's got this wispy little mustache that wiggles when he talks. And he's talking so fast I can barely sort out the words. Yes, sir, they call me Hobo Joe, and I'm sorry about them dogs. I bet they gave you a fright. And I should have warned you, 'cause that junkyard is famous for the pack of wild dogs. That's right. I seen you two get on back there in Iowa, and I says to myself, now, Joe, they'll want to rest a bit, so you wait till morning before you drop by for a visit. See, I've been riding 3 cars up, a nice empty boxcar with a pile of hay to sleep in. It's better than the Ritz Hotel. Got me a room with a view and a room service, too. Hey, I'll bet you two ain't had breakfast. Am I right about that? Huh? Am I? Excuse me, I ask, because listening to somebody talk that fast makes my ears ring. Food, he says. Breakfast. I got it if you want some. Breakfast is this great big can of beans that Joe had been heating up over a sterno can when the dogs attacked us. Now he heats it up again, and pretty soon the smell of simmering beans is thick in the air. I know what you're thinking, he says. You're thinking a can of beans don't make a breakfast, but that's where you're wrong, because beans is the best kind of food, especially when you're hungry. Normally, I could care less about beans, but we haven't had a thing to eat since supper last night, and the sight of those beans bubbling away makes my mouth water. I ask Worm if she's hungry, and she nods, and Joe shows her how to blow on the spoon so she won't burn her mouth. These beans got special vitamins, he says, make you grow big and strong. He's got this old canvas bag, and he keeps his stuff in, and inside is a loaf of bread, stale bread with hard crust, but Joe says it'll soften up good in the bean juice, and we tear up the bread and soak it, and stuff it in our mouths until we can't eat another bite. If you're hungry enough, stale bread and beans taste better than birthday cake. While we're eating, Joe never stops talking and moving around. Like he's got batteries inside that make him keep jumping and fidgeting and twitching his fuzzy little mustache. Guest for breakfast, he said. Who'd have thunk it? And he rattles on about how lonesome it gets living on the trains and how he's glad of the company and how good it is to have someone to talk to. Mostly he talks to himself. And how talking to yourself doesn't necessarily mean you're crazy, because there has to be an exception to every rule. And he, Hobo Joe, is the talking to himself exception. After we spoon up the last of the beans, the boxcar gives a shudder and starts moving again. They've been shunting off some of the freight cars, Joe explains. That means they unhook them and leave them behind. Train will be lighter now, and faster. By the time we clear Nebraska, we'll be flying, yes sir? He knows so much about trains because he's been living off the land, he says, riding the rails from one side of the country to the other, and then back again. So he knows what train goes where and why it stops at one place instead of another, and how not to get caught by the railroad police. Don't be thinking I'm homeless, he explains to Worm. Wherever I'm sleeping, that's my home, and I like it fine. He points at the wide-open door of the boxcar and the prairie grass rushing past like a blurry green river. Can you beat that? Why, it's better than TV. It sounds strange, but staring out at the countryside really is better than watching TV, because you never know what you're going to see next. Farms and barns and windmills, tall, silvery silos that look like spaceships ready to take off. Railroad bridges built from giant erector sets, a herd of buffalo that looks like cows with fur coats on. There's even some purple mountains way off in the distance, just like in that song about America. Everything keeps moving. It never settles into one thing. It keeps moving and turning into something new. You don't need to change the channel because it keeps changing itself and never stays the same. After a while, I feel like I'm getting hypnotized, like I'm wide awake but dreaming, like the train is standing still and the world is turning under us. Worm, She gets tired of watching the world go by, and she takes out a new book. This one is called The Sword and the Stone. I know about it because Kevin read it and told me the story back before I could read on my own. It's about this kid who everyone thinks is a real loser until one day he accidentally pulls this sword out of a stone. And that proves he's going to grow up to be King Arthur, this excellent dude who had a posse of knights in shining armor, slaying dragons and rescuing damsels, which are what they called women in the old days. You know what's so cool about King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table? Worm says to me. It's all about fighting for honor and protecting the innocent and never giving up, even if the whole world is against you. I go, yeah, that's pretty cool. The coolest thing is they call it chivalry, Worm says, sounding excited. And that's where we're going. Chivalry, Montana. She acts like it's this big coincidence, but I'm pretty sure she knew about knights and chivalry, and that's why she picked the book in the first place, so a reminder of where we're headed. You sure your dad is there? I asked her. For some reason, that makes her mad. You don't believe me, is that it? You want me to swear on my grave? Okay, I swear on my grave. My father is in Chivalry, Montana. I go, okay, take it easy. Joe hears her and butts in. Chivalry? That's where you two are headed? Worm glares at me and then nods. Yes, she says, most definitely. Then you come to the right place, Joe says. This train don't go there exactly, but I know one that does. And you'll show us? Course I will. It ain't exactly right around the corner. We got a long while before we get there. So if you guys don't mind, I'm gonna catch up on my beauty sleep. Joe fluffs his canvas bag like it's a pillow and stretches out his skinny legs and closes his eyes. Pretty soon you can hear him snoring, and it blends into the sound of the train. Worm taps me on the shoulder. Sorry I got mad, she says. I go, that's okay. I just miss my mom, Worm says. Sure, I say, that's only natural. The worm looks fierce. I miss her, but I hate her guts. I go, huh? It's her fault, Worm says. She didn't have to marry that creepoid, or let him hurt me, or lie to the cops. She's scared of him, I said. People do stupid things when they're scared. But she's my mom. Moms are supposed to take care of you. I don't know what to say. Moms aren't supposed to die either, but sometimes they do. Everything will be okay if I can just talk to... Okay, let's see if I know what voice I need to be in. Everything will be okay if I can just talk to my dad, Worm says. My real dad. He'll understand. Don't worry, I say. We'll find him. Then everything is quiet, except for the clickety sound of the train and the wind humming by. It's so quiet I can hear my own heart beating. And it seems to go rackety-roo, just like the train. After a while, Worm tugs at my arm and says, You hear that? It sounds like giants talking under the earth. At first I think it's just another weird thing she got out of a book. But then I start to hear it too. A low rumble that seems to come off the mountains and roll over the plains. You can't quite make out the words, but you could tell if they're just talking or fighting, or you can't tell if they're just talking or fighting or maybe the giants are singing and it sounds like earthquakes and avalanches from far, far away. It's like they're calling us, Worm says in a whispery, soft voice, trying to tell us something. I'm listening so hard my ears are hot, and finally I figure it out. The rumble noise from the train is echoing off the mountains. That's what makes it sound so hollow and deep. It's not giants talking under the earth. It's only the lonesome sound of the train makes as it goes through the world. But I don't say anything to Worm. I don't say anything, and Worm keeps listening, and she's smiling to herself, like she knows what the giants are saying, and that makes everything okay. I can't hear the giants anymore, but there's a song coming from inside the train. Rackety-roo, keep us safe from you-know-who. And that's the end of chapter 18. Be careful with that and enjoy, please and thank you. Bye.